Hello and welcome to another general session from Sention. This week's guest is Jason Makovich. Is it Mac? Is there Makovich in there, or is it just Mac? All right, got it on
You
the
got
first
it.
try. Love it. So today, I've honestly known Jason for I guess a few months at this point, and we've been very fortunate to dive into some good conversation. From Sention as a brand, how we developed our identity, and really from the ground up while he was doing the other side of business, talking about, hey, we've been around for a decade. We have that already mature business model, but they too ran into something similar regarding their brand. And congrats on the recent announcement, transitioning even your entire name and logo to now Greenlight Cyber. So very excited to dive into this and the reasons we did this, or rather you did this move. But first, let's do some housekeeping and talk about things going on at Sention. If we can pull up the screen. So the biggest news here is Sention is a finalist for the competition of Pitch It. So if you are going to be at IT Nation this year, you will have 5 minutes to hear me on stage talking about Sention and hopefully winning a prize. Outside of that, these webinars I do upload directly to our website. You can see those here for all of the previous episodes that we do. And if you wanted to test out Sention, which is a hardening software that you can automate the remediation of well over 1,000 different policies across workstations, servers, and very soon browsers. And you can also see where they crosswalk into other regulated frameworks. So you can see that here. And the last part is, if you do let me know you watched the webinar, we are happy to provide free reporting for some internal and external assessments, up to 100 completely free. So you can see a real baseline of your existing security posture and where it might sit across other frameworks. And again, Sention is a remediation tool. So our goal is to get you from here to here without causing disruption via our learning mode and recommendations. All right, transitioning back to the man of the hour, Jason Makovich. Thank you for joining, man. We can go ahead and close this up, but Jason, take a minute and please introduce who you are.
Yeah, thanks, Zach, for having me. So yeah, I'm Jason Makovich. You did pronounce it correctly, so that's good. You had a 1 and 2 shot. I get
I
that.
did
And
have two options in my head.
those are the two. But I've been called much worse. And yeah, I'm here in Southern California. I've had my company Greenlight for about almost 15 years now. I started it in 2010. And kind of started as a MSP back kind of in the early days of MSPs.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of a bold move back then.
Can you put a year for us on the time frame? What is back then?
So in 2010, I mean, this was right around the time where everyone, all the kind of trade groups in our industry were trying to educate us on why we should move to managed services as an industry and in our businesses, and sell our clients on these recurring, recurring services, proactive service, and a flat rate. What are you talking about? I've been billing hourly for the last decade. So it was a big move, and it was something that took some time to get going. I even as I started the company as a managed service provider, I had consulting clients that I brought in, that I continued with. So I was a network engineer prior to that, and so I had hourly work from them. But the new clients I was signing up, started to sign up with managed IT. And then over the years, back then, I mean, we'd have SonicWall and antivirus, and that's all we had for cybersecurity.
That was enough.
I mean, yeah, it was totally it wasn't even a thing, especially in the SMB market where I enjoy working. And so for years, we just kind of got by with, every once in a while I had to run Malwarebytes or one of those tools, and clean up a computer, but it wasn't like, other than like adware, it wasn't like a big deal. But of
Yep.
course, we all saw that change actually really quickly with, I think, the advent of ransomware. I think when the bad guys figured out how to monetize their skills very brilliantly in an evil way, monetize their skills. So that changed the game. And
Yep. I mean, those hackers too. I mean, they're entrepreneurs themselves. And Jason, you are the founder and CEO, correct? Yep. So very much just like you, the hackers who are looking at this also needed to have a business model, needed to make that revenue. And they saw that MSPs who are only really doing this project-based work, making sure that the printer works, that they can do their job, they saw that as an opportunity. You were making their environments originally more usable, more uptime, really focused on that, maybe a
yeah,
couple security things, as you mentioned, but really just uptime was the priority. And even though that's great from that end client you're working with, it presented an opportunity for other bad entrepreneurs to create their own business model and take advantage of good people like yourself, myself out there. So that's an awesome transition. And honestly, let's just pull up this first slide here. You were that traditional MSP, project based work, really contracted hours, and just went through that. So this transition really leads into what Greenlight is, MSP to now Greenlight Cyber, focusing more and leading with that cybersecurity platform. So talk to us a little bit of how your clients really handled that transition.
well, it was, I think it's, it was a phased transition. And I think a lot of it occurred kind of slowly over time,
Mm-hmm.
where you we started to have conversations with clients about the risks, right? And when we started seeing ransomware and business email compromise, and of course funds transfer fraud and other types of risks, when we saw these really starting to affect our market in SMB and nonprofit space, we again started to have these conversations with clients and educate them. But it also really required me and my colleagues here to cram, to skill up and really get to a level where we understood it enough to be the experts. Now, for a while, we had partners that we brought in that were information security professionals that had been in information security for a very long time. We've gotten to the point where we still absolutely have a ton of great partners in that space, but we also have our own in-house expertise, so through
Yep.
some very strategic hires, as well as a lot of upskilling here internally. And so that evolution really started with conversations with new solutions that we brought to the table, and trying to move from just availability and performance to balancing it with security, and
Yep.
creating kind of a middle ground in that it's almost a spectrum of security and availability, and you have to really figure out how to navigate that. But the good thing
Yeah.
is there are tried and true best practices out there. It's not like we're reinventing any wheels here.
Thank God we're not.
Yeah,
I don't need that
and
type of liability.
yeah, I mean, look at CIS and their benchmarks, and being able to use Sention as a partner
Appreciate it.
to deliver those, and to not just one time, but to maintain and protect against configuration drift and other things. So that's just one example of the many
Yeah.
partnerships we have that help us really deliver defense in depth security to our clients. But then, to kind of finish up in answering your question,
Mhm.
this final transition into from Greenlight, technically Greenlight Information Services, that's been the company name. Most of our clients just think of us as Greenlight, but moving from that to Greenlight Cyber, it really just came down to having some conversations with clients here and there. But a lot of clients I didn't even have an opportunity to have that conversation with, in which case it was really just an announcement that we
Mhm.
made the day before we went live, and I was just thrilled to see the positive feedback that I got out of that
We're
announcement.
definitely going to need to dive into that because that is one area that I don't think any of us realize. I mean, Sension is a brand, right? We're a little bit newer. We don't have that decade-long brand recognition, but even if we were to change it, I do believe people would recognize that. People would see it, right? You said one thing that I'm interested. Obviously, transitioning to cybersecurity, there's going to be a tech uplift. Everyone listening on the call knows that. But you said understanding your financials. So, was this decision when you were first considering it, you realized, whoa, a lot of our project-based work has to do with security? Like when you said kind of looked at your financials and used that as a driver or one of the many reasons to pivot from your existing brand, talk to us about that.
Well, I mean, it comes down to the kind of marketability of our services. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, financials. I mean, in a business, right? Like that's fundamental. But I think it's more so, understand when we look at the amount of work we're doing in cyber
Yep.
versus project versus IT managed IT services versus maybe Microsoft Cloud and other things, right? The shift over the past, I don't know, 4 or 5 years or so has been pretty profound. And
Mm-hmm.
now the vast majority of our revenue is through our cybersecurity solutions.
And that
Um,
wasn't like an intentional effort. That's kind of just something that naturally started. Is that fair to say?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think it was way more intentional.
All
I
right.
think it really was. I think because it was about 4 or 5 years ago that we got together as a team and we started talking about kind of what is the future of Greenlight? Where do we want to go with this? And we were kind of at a sort of an inflection point where
Yeah.
are we going to double down on MSP and just be really good at security? Or do we really want to have a business that can really focus on providing managed cybersecurity to the SMB community, even if they don't need us for IT? And we decided to take that path to build a program that we call Guardian,
Yep.
which is a managed cybersecurity program that can stand on its own, that doesn't require us to be the MSP, that doesn't require us to force in our stack of RMM and everything else. Like we can just come in with cybersecurity. They can have an MSP. In fact, we have MSP partners now that bring us in
That's awesome.
for all the security, which is great. That's going to be a huge avenue for us, and it's great for them and it's great for their clients, right? We can work alongside them. Um, but we also have a lot of clients that have internal IT. And
Yep.
so we've had a co-managed IT service for years, and we'll probably continue to do that because it's great to be able to bridge those gaps. But ultimately, yeah, it was a very deliberate effort to kind of pivot, but it wasn't decided until probably earlier this year about our
Just
rebrand.
go all in.
Yeah, I think it was an inevitable move, but we hadn't really decided on that until maybe spring of this year, maybe right around Q2.
You guys moved quite rapidly. I mean, that's awesome to
Yeah,
hear that
and
it
and
is feasible.
even then we hadn't picked a name. Like we bounced around ideas forever, and you wouldn't think so. Greenlight to Greenlight Cyber is pretty easy, but you should have heard some of the crazy ideas we came up with. So I'm glad we ended up with Greenlight Cyber. It made for an easier transition.
We'll get some behind the scenes on some of those names. But no,
Yeah.
I mean the big thing is that you can kind of share here through the way you're speaking about it is you found a lot of pivoting for purpose, right? You found interest in this revenue stream, in this new opportunity, and maybe it is a love for cyber, but it was also you saw and you said this: the SMBs needed help, right? The MSPs needed help, even that you're working with. So there was a lot of an emotional driver here. Obviously, you did have a lot of team discussions. You sat down, you scheduled calls. But as a company and as a business owner, how important is that emotional side of
Mhm.
potentially making a pivot like this? How much of a driver is that? Or is it strictly financial market forecasting, or is there an emotional play here?
That's a good question. Um, I have to say I'm probably not as savvy of a business person as many out there. Maybe if I were, we'd be.
Jason runs an incredible business for the listeners here. He's extremely humble.
Uh, but I'm a high empathy person, and so when I hear stories of small businesses getting destroyed, like it really affects me. And knowing that we're in a position to help anyone that's willing to be helped, to willing to listen, to learn about the risks. We're passionate about it. I mean, I can't even tell you how much over the last 4 or 5 years I've spent on my own time, although I guess all that time is when you own the business. But
It's all Greenlight's time. We don't,
yeah,
us entrepreneurs, we don't actually have
we don't
Zach
have
time or
off.
Jason time.
Yeah, yeah. Just ask my family that the laptop always in front. It's
Unfortunate reality.
it's well, yeah, but yeah, it's a passion. Like it's a real passion. I love learning about it. I love being good at it and getting better at it and really understanding it. But I also just feel this real drive. I mean, it's funny. I've been doing this for like 25 years. I've been in the profession, technology profession for a quarter decade. And honestly, I grew up around it. My dad owned a computer company, so I grew up around it. I was building computers at age 11, and I mean,
That's awesome.
so. But the fact is, like after all these years, I have never been more passionate than I am right now about what I do, and I think it's because of that purpose. Because there's a real need for more cybersecurity talent, and not just cybersecurity talent from a technical perspective. I think the biggest challenge, at least in our market, in the SMB and nonprofit space, is bridging the gap. It's communicating, educating, and bridging that gap between cyber risk and business, cyber risk and IT. Those are two major gaps. Business and IT was always a gap, and that was something I was always focused on bridging. But when you add in cybersecurity, which affects both, and now it triangulates it in a way where it's an order of magnitude more complicated. And
Yeah.
when you have business leaders that just assume that IT understands cybersecurity, and I can tell you, I was a very good IT person for many years, and I did not understand cybersecurity at all, and neither do most IT people.
Yep.
And it's no fault of their own; it's just a different field.
Yep.
But it doesn't mean they can't skill up. But at the same time, I mean, like I did, but at the same time, it's the business leadership that needs to understand
It
that
needs to be intentional, it sounds like.
it does, and it needs to be kind of embedded into everything the organization does. It's not just some component. Finance is embedded throughout the organization, right? We have KPIs and other things that drive profitability and cost control and revenue growth and all that. And it's very similar with cyber. It's a mindset. It's a culture. It's something that needs to be embedded throughout decisions made in the organization. It's a risk, and in fact, I would contend that in most businesses, it's now the largest risk to any business. I would contend that, and I'm not alone in that.
Yeah.
I know several non-cybersecurity folks, just business folks, including I think it's the head of business, the
They're
business
starting to see that.
USC actually stated that. So the head of the business school at USC stated that. So that says a lot. Cyber risk is arguably the largest risk to business today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you talked about, the IT and the business. If you were to look at that as, the bridge from one side to the other, yeah, both of those can get to point A to point B. Those are critical. If you need to get across the river, the bridge is critical. But what is protecting those? Just because you know how to build a bridge doesn't mean you know how to build the surrounding protection of the bridge so it doesn't collapse or that storm coming through. Those that cybersecurity piece will enforce and make sure the bridge is always ongoing and running. So I think that's really important to call out. And let's go ahead and kind of transition to the timing of what you did. You did mention how this was something in Q2, and we can go to the next slide here with brand drift, right? In Q2 of spring, you really started looking at the cybersecurity focused name. You really started digging into it. But you also said for about 2 years, you still had the same company name and the same company brand. Did this make it a little bit confusing to your audience? Like, how did you one recognize that brand drift was happening? And two, did that impact those first round meetings with people?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So we get a lot of referrals, which I can't even tell you how much we appreciate, right? That's been the real secret to our success, right?
That's awesome.
We have a wonderful partner network, great relationships with clients, with partners, and we get a lot of great referrals. And when we get a referral, 99 times out of 100, these referrals are cyber specific, right? Like, hey,
Okay.
we've been hacked, or hey, we want to implement some controls, or we need some help. We don't know what we need, right? There's a lot of that. And when they're introduced to a company that has information services in the name, doesn't have cyber at all, and then you go to their website and it looks like they're just another MSP,
Yep.
and there's just there's nothing really specific about cyber. Yeah, sure, our website had some cyber language,
You have some
on there,
pages, sure.
but it wasn't really profound, and it just didn't really align with what we were really focused in now. It's not to say, I mean, we still again offer co-managed IT services. We still are a Microsoft partner. We do a lot in the cloud. We do a lot with Azure, Microsoft 365. We work with all our existing clients and help them. I mean, we're still the same team and the same people and providing still that great service. But I think the biggest gap was new kind of introductions to new potential clients, new clients, and new partners, and just being in that community. I mean, even just going to conferences like
Yeah.
cyber risk conferences, and meeting with folks that maybe at a law firm that handled breach counsel, or maybe cyber insurance agency, or carrier, and that sort of perception of, oh wait, who are you? What do you guys do? Whereas now, I know we're just better positioned
I mean, you're
to
not only
be
helping
part of
the
that.
trade show, and so I'm just getting back from CornCon, right? I spoke there, and everyone gets an agenda, right? A lot of these shows have multiple tracks. You can choose this breakout session, this breakout session. And for us, when we decided to add our brand to have managed endpoint hardening in our name, just simply put it out there. Now, instead of people seeing, oh, Sention is speaking, I don't know who they are, let's look at the next one, they see and manage endpoint hardening, and it's like, oh, maybe that is a trigger, right? That is what we do, and maybe that helps them. So in this same relationship, at shows that you might speak of, or those first round introductions, when your sales team takes that first round meeting, or yourself, right? You now are eliminating a hoop, it sounds like, and you can get to the point quicker because now they know from your name the scope is probably cyber.
Yeah, yeah, it does help. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a good point with your brand too. I don't know if maybe I saw the name Sention, a dozen times before I ever
mhm.
learned what you guys do, and it wasn't until we were actually researching how we could help our clients harden their endpoints,
Yep.
uh, that we came upon Sention, and it was a perfect fit. And it couldn't be a better partnership. It's outstanding.
No,
A great product, but great partnership too.
I appreciate that. And you bring up a good point with searching. So I know this wasn't on the agenda, so we'll do it really briefly. But you know, I got two parters. So one, how much effort does it take to legally do these things? Obviously, I'm not talking about the whole marketing design, website design. Obviously, there's a time, but is changing your name difficult? And then the second part here, you said you didn't really find Sensia until you started to get to those keywords, right? Do you think changing your name is going to help SEO? Is that something you track or anything?
So, first part question, legal change. We're merely using Greenlight Cyber as a DBA.
Okay.
So you file with the county, and here in California, you update your statement of information we're an LLC. So easy peasy. Our agreements all still say Greenlight Information Services LLC. Not changing that. I don't see a need. We're
Mhm.
still the same company. This is more of a branding effort, but regardless of what the name is, it just I think that to me that was the best way, right?
Sure.
Like we didn't want to go through the efforts of having to do a full corporate name change. Honestly, I don't even know what that entails, but it sounds already like too much work for us.
But there is a
Um,
feasible way for any listeners considering, oh,
sure,
I don't
there
have
are
time to
ways.
do this. This is something
You
feasible if considering.
you can do a DBA fictitious name. It's really easy. I'm not an attorney, so I recommend ask your attorney what you need to do. But for us, um, or you can ask, AI, I suppose these days, right?
I think
So
I think AI probably has a probably just spin up the DBA for you.
I may or may not have asked AI how to do this. By the way, I will not. I will not confess. But your second part of the question, forgive me at my advanced age. Can you help refresh
Oh,
that?
I'm sorry. Search engine
That's
optimization.
right.
So being
SEO.
able to be found a little bit easier online.
So yeah. So years ago, it was probably about 2 or 3 years after I started Greenlight. So 2012, 2013, I partnered with a company that specialized in SEO for MSPs, and really liked the person I worked with there and everything. They did a really good job. And when you Googled like IT
Nice.
support Orange County or Irvine or something like that, like we were way up there. But I was spending a pretty penny on that every month. And in all the time, we probably had it for about a year and a half, 2 years. And in all that time, I got maybe 4 or 5 phone calls. They were usually like a home user or like a really
Interesting.
tiny, like we had one law firm that called us that looked like it would have been a good deal, but it didn't pan out. Like it just we had no return on the investment at all.
Yep.
And ever since then, I've decided, you know what? I want to earn business through referral. I want to earn the business.
Yep.
And so we'll do kind of the low hanging fruit SEO that you can do. Our new website is hosted in HubSpot. So I know there's a lot of cool stuff in there that can be done. But I mean, ultimately, it's just not a big, maybe down the line, but it's just
Sure.
not a big priority for us. I think the challenge is cybersecurity. Like there's tons of cyber companies now,
Yep.
and so for someone to go and find a partner, and that's really what we are to our clients, a partner. Um, when I need to find a partner, I ask people I trust,
Yep.
right? Like I don't just Google. Now, if I need to find a product, yeah, I'll Google all day. And so you really, I think for us, SEO is very much an afterthought. That said, yeah, I mean, if someone Googles cybersecurity company, it would be great for us to come up. But
Yep.
the other thing to note is SEO. SEO, I think, can work really well if you're regional, if you're local, you just handle local clients. We don't. We're nationwide. Our clients are all across the country. We have a few international. We're really not focused on Orange
Sure.
County. We just happen to live here. In fact, we have employees that are outside of Orange County. But that's just where our headquarters is, where I live.
Yep.
So, like, yeah, I think down the line, maybe there's some play for SEO, maybe on certain things that we do, like
Sure. I mean, it's
cyber
about
insurance readiness.
prioritization too. And your really main focus here, and we can kind of show this next slide here with brand versus marketing, right? So, this SEO aspect maybe hasn't had the ROI. It's something you experimented with, but you realized your brand is what drove the referrals. Your brand is what was driving these additional ROI activities. So, in our pre-interview, we really did a deeper dive, brand versus marketing. Do you need one? Do you need both? Is one the same as the other? You found something within your brand, within your messaging that really stood out and started to earn you referrals. I think every MSP on the call wants to earn referrals. I think all of us, vendors alike, I prefer to have introductions to someone who already knows what we do and has a friend or someone vouching, like, yeah,
Oh,
you described this to me, this vendor's your guy, right? It just makes everything easier. So talk to us about brand versus marketing and how you came to understand the Greenlight cyber brand.
the way I look at is brand is the identity, but kind of a personification of the business. And it might sound a little hokey, but I mean, I really take it to an extreme. So I look at the brand, and when I started really trying to create, okay, who is Greenlight Cyber as a brand, not as a team. We know that who's the brand, right? And I deliberately use the word who because I'm trying to personify Greenlight Cyber, right? What does Greenlight Cyber like? What does Greenlight Cyber hate? How does Greenlight Cyber talk? How does Greenlight Cyber dress? Like, these are silly questions, but when you ask yourself these things, you can kind of get really cool ideas as to how your brand is really going to feel to the audience, to the market, right? And that helped us define how we wanted the logo to look. And in fact, right, what shirts and hats and
Sure.
all that, right? Like, it's all part of it. But it's like,
I
we're
mean,
not getting the cheapest shirts. We're getting the nice stuff. We're getting the nice
yeah,
hats because we're a premium brand and we provide premium service. And it's just part of our premium, uh, I think, premium offering, but also it ties into that identity that we're creating and that we're trying to put out there, so that when the market sees us, when they have some sort of touch point with us, some sort of experience with us, that they're getting that feeling, that sense that they're dealing with someone that cares, that understands them, that is willing to invest a lot into the relationship. And so it all ties in. So Greenlight Cyber is an extrovert. Greenlight Cyber
I
is
love that. Yep.
loves people and is high empathy. Greenlight Cyber, apparently likes expensive clothes because cost more
you,
than
you know, you
old.
bring up a really good point, and this ties back to why one of the reasons you changed your name is that first introduction, that first finding of you, that first impression. They now have cyber associated with your name, but it sounds like you want to take this as far as saying, hey, I want my brand again to be human. I want Greenlight to be a person, because now, and correct me if I'm misguiding the listeners here, but it sounds like you want that new person who just meets you not only to think cyber, but they want to think the cyber nice guys, or the cyber guys who dress well, the cyber guys who are going to listen, right? Like
I don't
you're,
even think it's about thinking it, because I don't think it's a conscious thing. I really don't. I think, yeah, it's an exercise that I think a business owner should take on, or a marketing leader, or brand
Mhm.
director, and any good brand person would do that. That's kind of their job. And you read about marketing and branding, and as I have, and that's kind of aligned with kind of what they teach. But it's more of an exercise that I think you go through internally to create something that has more of a subliminal or passive effect on the marketing. But I think it's also something that isn't just for the outside, also for the culture of the team,
Yeah.
right? Because there's probably nothing more important to me than my team. And creating a culture, cultivating a culture, contributing to a culture that aligns with that personification that we've generated out of Greenlight Cyber. So I don't think it's a conscious thing on the outside or even inside the team. I think it's, again, just that feeling you get when you work with someone that you like to work with. And we want every element, like, our part of our brand is how Greenlight Cyber talks. Well, what that means
Sure.
is, how do we talk to our clients and our partners and anyone we engage with? What is the way we communicate? Like, how do we come across? And I think when people think about brand as just marketing, just logos or colors, they're really missing out on some of the other things that you can really actually be way more deliberate about
Yeah.
and create internal culture and external marketability and positioning in the market in a way that maybe one hasn't thought of before. And this was kind of the first time we ever did that, because I didn't know any of this stuff before. When I started Greenlight, I was a lot younger and had a lot less experience. So this kind of second time around of being able to do this, we want to do it right, and we put a lot into it.
Yeah, and to everyone listening who hasn't done a rebrand before, or even is just now starting a company, so you want to start on the right foot. I mean, let's talk about this process. So we can kind of go to this next slide here, but you mentioned throughout all of this there were a lot of ideas. You got around the table and talked like what is Greenlight going to be. You kind of chose one focus, even if the other services still offer, right? But talk to us about this rebranding process. How did you truly figure it out? How did you figure out this was it, and how did you then roll that out to everywhere?
Haphazardly, I would say, would be
Any
how.
best practices you can share or lessons learned to the listeners?
um, Involve people. Don't do this on your own. I would have come up with the dumbest stuff, man. I came up with dumb names. I came up.
Dude, when you say involve people, are you referring to like firms, outsourcing,
Yeah,
or these like
no,
friends,
no,
customers?
yes,
What does that mean?
yes. So involve your team. Number one, okay. You get the buy-in. Get your entire team involved. And yeah, if you don't have anyone on the team that can really facilitate that, yeah, bring someone in. There's a lot of really good branding experts, marketing experts out there. Bring someone in that can help facilitate an exercise to where you can really define it, but don't do it on an island, don't do it in a box. I mean, and then yeah, involve some clients. If you've got some clients you got that kind of relationship with, awesome. Like, there's nothing better than that. Involve some partners, involve friends and family, like anything. Think
No
about,
limit to it.
there's really no limit, but make it fun, make it something uh, that not only you coming up with a logo or colors or a name, but again, talk about that identity and really make it something that people buy into and want to be part of.
That's awesome. Now that's an incredible best practice. And I think for the entrepreneurs out there listening, it can be isolating, right? That's something I preach, mental health quite a bit, right? Because I don't really have, my old high school friends or even a lot of my college friends, right? I'm a younger entrepreneur myself, and I don't have a huge network of people I can relate to and talk to outside of, my MSP partners and some of my clients out there. Like, use your network and don't try to do this on your own. I know Sension, again, going through this managed endpoint hardening, a big influencer and a helpful voice in that was Joe Alapat from Lion Guard, right? That's another vendor to vendor. We're not competitors by any means. If anything, we're partners, but it's still someone who has nothing, I don't know, no equity in the game, no stake in it, right? They don't actually matter what we do, but they were willing to listen and talk about it and share their ideas. Just like Jason's preaching here, it doesn't have to be someone who pays you. It doesn't have to be someone who knows anything about cyber necessarily, friends,
Oh yeah.
family, but talking about this is critical.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
awesome. So
And not only that, but also I think the involvement of the team gets that buy-in for the team. The last thing you want to do is make a big change and then
that's a really good point we shouldn't
team's like,
skip
why did
over.
we do
Like,
that? We
how
don't
did you
want
get the
that.
team buy-in, right? That's something we shouldn't really just skip over. How, like, obviously you can't involve 25 cooks in the kitchen. You'll never get anything done. So how did you go about getting your team buy-in internally?
So we did back in January, we brought all our employees to Vegas actually for a weekend.
Wish I was an employee.
Which was pretty fun. And so we did a weekend there, and me and a few, so the leadership team, we went out a day early, and we had kind of a full offsite, full day. We brought in a consultant of ours that did kind of a strategy session, like a full day thing, and it was phenomenal. I mean, honestly, I thought it would be helpful. I can't even begin to state how impactful it was. And I'm quite convinced we wouldn't be anywhere near the level of success that we've seen in this year without having gone through that exercise. Because I mean, I mean, we could do a whole webinar on that, but it was like we did like a dream session talking about each person's
That's
dreams.
awesome.
It was a long, tiring day, but out of it really came a lot of purpose, a lot of direction, alignment, and it really came down to aligning what our goals are and what we're trying to achieve and accomplish. And so it was very well thought out through the leadership team. Then everyone else came and we had a great weekend, and I didn't want to make the rest of the team work at all during that time. It was really more of kind of a bonding time and just
Sure.
have fun. Everyone and their spouses, partners came out, and it
Oh,
was
good
it
for
was
you.
awesome. But we came back home a couple weeks later. We had an all hands meeting where we talked about what we covered in this session. We talked about we didn't run through the whole thing. We ran through the results of it and why, but the why, and you always want to start with why. So why are we doing what we're doing? Why is this important? And we had a very interactive, very useful workshop around it through the whole team, every cook in the kitchen.
Awesome.
And it wasn't at all the branding exercise. It was really more about who are we? What are we trying to accomplish? What do we want to do this year? We're going to be doing this again. We're doing like quarterly strategy meeting with the whole team, and we do weekly strategy meetings with the leadership team.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just about getting everyone together and having a real open dialogue with everybody about it. The other thing I do is I do one-to-ones with every employee quarterly. So, and these
Wow.
one-to-ones are not reviews, and I won't bring up work
That's
at
good.
all. I'll let them if they want, but it's really that chance to really continue that connection and cultivate that relationship. And I think just kind of earning the trust that every leader should have in the organization. I'm grateful that we have the size of an organization where I can do that. Maybe eventually it won't be tenable, but I think just building that kind of culture and being part of that, but then also really, yeah, just getting everyone's involvement and
So they didn't just get an email announcement; their
no,
entire company name is changing.
right?
That's critical. And
Well
we can
thought
show the
out,
next slide during this as well because we did start to talk about the trust aspect of it. And I want to first give you, I mean, just Greenlight Cyber as a company, a live testimonial, being one of your vendor partners, right? Working with your CISO Jackson Tran, I believe, right?
yeah.
And he wouldn't really give Sension a POC opportunity at first until he figured out really, okay, where does this fit into the greater mission? Where is this in our entire Guardian, product mission, right? So it was not that it was, extremely difficult, but there was an extra layer of approval before maybe even Jason heard of me, right? That delegation, the trust that you had in your team, it was a hoop I had to get through, and it had nothing to do with technology per se. It had nothing to do with the usability, the efficacy. It was, where does this fit to our new brand, to our new mission? So, the fact you trust your team so much and you're willing to delegate, and you even bring, wives, husbands, partners all on this trip, that's extremely grateful of you and just good move. So, talking about building the trust internally, let's talk about some of the client response and impact. So, the next slide here is really talking about the trust on the external side of the house. It sounded like you tried to reach out to a lot of your partners, but a lot of, at the end of the day, can't get a hold of everyone. There may be an email announcement, and you did hint that at the beginning. You got a lot more response than you expected. But tell us, how did you handle the external part of the rebrand with existing partners?
Well, I told I think those that I happened to meet with, so we kind of kept it stealth for a while. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want anyone knowing anything. We had the new domain name. We were building the website. everything was stealth. We weren't telling anybody. We just kept it to ourselves. Then about maybe a month or so before our go live on the rebrand, we decided we'll start telling people as we're talking to them, but let them know, hey, look, this is kind of on the down low. We don't want anyone knowing yet. And so it was really, I think, just a timing thing. Just, hey, those clients I happened to meet with during that month, those partners I happened to meet with, that where it came up in conversation. But here's the thing: moving from Greenlight to Greenlight Cyber, it's not a big. It's not like I'm asking my clients to make some huge change on anything. I mean, they're still going to call us Greenlight, and
Yeah.
it doesn't change much. If we went from Greenlight to some like Black Point Cyber, whatever, like that would have been very
Trucking
different.
computers. It'd be a little
Yeah,
confusing.
yeah. Jason's Cyber R Us.
Yeah.
Like yeah, that would have been a very different conversation, and I probably wouldn't have gotten quite the positive feedback that we got. But yeah, it wasn't a tall order for any partners or clients or vendors, anybody. So it didn't really require too much. I didn't want to overplay it. I think more than anything, we just wanted to get it out there, get it done, and be Greenlight Cyber now. We just want to be Greenlight Cyber. We don't.
Yep.
It wasn't even so much about the transition. It's just like, okay, we're ready. Our website was ready-ish, ready enough.
I like that ish part. That's how it goes, right? There is a lot of work
Never perfect,
between,
right? Like,
yep,
we
between
keep,
logos, equipment, marketing, right? Website, everything gets added up. I do have a couple more specific questions to your story with this rebrand. Obviously, it wasn't a massive transition, like you said. But out of curiosity, do you credit, if there was any, and if you're willing to share, do you think you lost any existing business because of this rebrand? Is that no?
no,
Good to
no.
hear it. The other piece is you mentioned you were kind of not hinted, but at the customers who you had meetings with, you did kind of share it. And then for everyone else, maybe you didn't meet with, you said there was a very active email. Looking back, do you wish you did more announcement one-on-one, voice to voice, as opposed to the email, or you don't think it played that much of a role?
As of right now, and it's only been a few weeks, I can't say that I have any reason to believe there was a need for more. The feedback I got was tremendously positive. I was really blown away with a lot of the messages that I continue to receive. I got a reply from one of them in the night. Like this morning, I woke up and I saw an email reply from my email a few weeks ago announcing it from a partner that I haven't talked to in a while, and it's just so great to see those come in. So yeah, I don't think there was, because it wasn't a big jump for us and it's just a DBA, like we're not asking for contracts to be changed or for even our clients to change who they make payment out to. Like nothing needs to change. So yeah, I think it was just a really easy thing, and we didn't want to make it too big
Mm-hmm.
of a change for anybody. Part of the reason why we chose the name Greenlight Cyber, we decided, you know what, let's not completely upend everything, and let's just do a DBA. Let's just make it Greenlight Cyber. Let's make this transition simple for everybody, because we don't want to negatively impact anybody, but we do
Sure.
want to be Greenlight Cyber. That's who we wanted to be.
Yep. And obviously there was change. So let's kind of move forward here with change. I mean, the definition of change is something different, right? So how have you worked with your team or your external brand image, right? How are you, obviously you maintain your company heritage and the green light aspect of your name, but this is change, right? So how are you maintaining the brand that you previously had while adding something completely new?
I
Or
think,
is it about abandoning the previous, right? Is there a need to remember?
yeah, I mean, I think there is, and I think that I think the brand we had before was something that was not built with any like deliberate effort. It was something that
I like
just kind
that.
of happened. And so because it's the same people and we're doing the same work we were doing 2 months ago, and like I don't think there's a whole lot of worry about maintaining any legacy around it. Plus, we have the name Greenlight still.
Yeah.
I think the biggest change is everything that had our logo. We had to go and update that. We had to go and update the
More
colors.
painful than you know for everyone who's not in marketing or ownership. A pain it is.
And which is, I'm again grateful for my team for doing all the work there, because I think I updated like 2 things and everyone else did everything else, and it all came out really well. So I'm thrilled about it. But yeah, it was a team effort, certainly. And the night of the changeover, on the night of the 30th, which I guess was a
Not
little
even a few weeks, brother. You
right.
just did this.
Yeah, it was just over a week ago. Man, yeah, crazy.
I remember planning this about like maybe 3-4 months ago, and we are like, yeah, I think this date will be safe. You were safe by about 10 days. So
Yeah.
good prediction. You hit
Yeah,
your
not bad.
deadline.
Not bad. It all came down, for us, it came down to the website development. I wanted to get it to a certain point. Like, we're continuing to add to it. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping people come back to the site and see what we're doing with it. There's a lot more content that we're going to continue adding.
Yeah.
That's going to be really important for our sales efforts, but it's also going to be important to educate our clients on certain topics, and just educate the market in general on things. So I'm hoping the website becomes something that can be very useful for folks.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, kind of switching from your company brand, which is really what we've talked about. One other thing you really were passionate about was your personal brand. So if we can kind of pull up this next one, talking about, everyone says, get a cert, it maybe in your point of view, it built credibility, but did this, you are a proud holder of your CISP. It's in your LinkedIn headline. It's in your, well, rather the name portion. But this aspect, obviously, you felt there was value here. Is this something that you did because of the upcoming brand transition? Is this something you saw writing on the wall before you even considered changing your company brand? Talk to us a little bit about personal brand and why the cert mattered to you.
So the cert mattered. I think number one, I'm out there doing speaking engagements, usually around cybersecurity, not around marketing and branding. I'm
Although you are the
meeting
SME of today, you're doing great.
good. But I'm speaking, I'm in meetings, I'm presenting, I'm acting as a subject matter expert for cybersecurity, right? To me, I needed something to back me up, to say, if someone were to ask, well, what makes you an expert? Now with the CISSP, I feel like I can say, I don't, first of all, I don't know that there are any real experts out there in cyber. Changes so quickly. But having the CISSP badge is something that I think at least supports my own positioning as this expert, or I don't know. I mean, I think ultimately you don't need it. I don't think it's necessary, but I wanted to have that. But I also really enjoyed learning the
Yeah.
things that I didn't yet know, within all the domains of CISSP, because I come from a network engineering background, and I really understood network security, infrastructure security really well. But there are other elements of cybersecurity, from governance to
Software dev and
cryptography
yeah.
to application development, security, that I didn't really have too much exposure to. And while I'm always learning things, I'm usually learning things that are more relevant to exactly the work we're doing, which is more aligned with the infrastructure security than the other, and the governance, of course, throughout all of it.
Yep.
But yeah, just getting to learn this kind of breadth of knowledge, and then to have that kind of that badge to really kind of back me up. There is a currency to
Yeah.
certain certifications, and I think the CISSP is one that has a
It
pretty
allows
high
you to kind of
value.
baseline a differentiator against the MSP who may not have someone with internally with that, right? It's just that extra. We talk about defense in depth with all the layers of security. This is a defense in depth to your brand, right? This gives you a layer of protection to
Yeah.
be the SME, right? Here's my credibility. So think of that as just layers to getting to who you are.
Yeah.
Um, I, I, I mean, we did a lot of this talk about company brand image, a little bit on marketing. But this concept of personal brand, this has nothing to do directly with your company. This is yours. Is getting personal brand or having your team of salespeople, your CISO, post to LinkedIn or chat on forums, right? Do you encourage personal brand for your team, or is this more just something you do?
I mean, I encourage it for anybody. I mean, if anyone wants to really build their brand, they should, right? It took me years to understand any sort of value in it. My identity was always sunk into Greenlight. It was just, yeah, Greenlight. I didn't really think of myself as more than Greenlight. And all my efforts in Greenlight, it's not like I'm one of those guys that has like a bunch of side hustles or whatever. No, I mean, Greenlight's my baby, and that's pretty much all I work on professionally. Um, that said, you know, will I will I own Greenlight when I'm 55, 65? I have no idea, right? Like, I don't know what's to come, but I know I'll still be me, and I know I'm still going to work. Uh, I'm going to be in the profession. I love cybersecurity, and I don't see myself leaving that space ever, at least anytime soon. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's important for me to have some level of a personal brand, professional brand as myself that has not completely separation from Greenlight, but at the same time can stand on its own. And you know, I enjoy public speaking. I enjoy,
Yeah.
uh, you know, um, being seen as a subject matter expert on cyber and being invited to webinars and things like this. And as long as I can be helpful out there, like I love it. I love being part of the solution.
Would you go as far, and maybe you are doing this today, maybe you aren't doing this today. Do you think there's any opportunity for business owners to, I guess, equip or even incentivize their team to building this personal brand? Or is this something either you want to do it or you don't want to do it?
I think it depends. I mean, I would be very supportive if anyone on my team wanted to build their own personal brand, but I think my job in the company, yeah, I don't. I think it would depend on the business and on the
Sure.
individual and their role. But I look at it like we all play roles here at Greenlight, and so if we had a role where outside of myself that we need someone kind of to be seen to do the demand generation or any sort
Sure.
of outside, then yeah, we would probably invest into that.
Yep.
Otherwise, I think it's up to the individual. And
I
there's
very
certain
much agree with that
individuals, that
individual
want
point of
to.
view.
Yeah,
I can beg my founding team to post as much as I do, but it's some people are interested in it. Some people, you know, we all have different prioritizations. So I definitely hear, you can't force anyone to do what they don't want to do. Was just kind of curious that internal point of view because you did a whole company rebrand, so the personal brand topic has to come up.
yeah,
So thanks for
yeah.
sharing on that.
And my personal brand is really just my way of reaching out to the community and trying to educate them on the things that I'm learning as I go.
Awesome. All right, kind of wrapping up here. So last slide, we're right at the hour. I mean, you talked about some of your lessons learned. You talked about a ton of aspects today, a lot of great conversation. But anything you want to leave either, an MSP who's considering a rebrand or a new entrepreneur looking at launching a company, any just kind of closing thoughts you want to shout out here?
Well, I mean, hopefully this session helped around any sort of rebrand ideas, right? So, if there's more, I mean, anyone can find me on LinkedIn. My name is quite unique, so feel free to reach out to me. And then I would say, yeah, if someone's out there that's like considering starting a business, or I'm often introduced to younger people. My daughter's 19; she's undergrad student. A lot of her friends. I'm constantly like talking to young people about their journey and
Yeah.
what they want to do. And I would just say, instead of following your passion, know that when you're really good at something and you get great at it, you'll get passionate about it. So
Yeah.
follow what you're good at, follow what you enjoy doing, but what you're great at, and find a passion in that.
And that's actually a huge sentiment, because the information technology may not have been the strongest passion in your life, but you were extremely good at it, right? And as you matured and as you took that step to say, I do want to be an entrepreneur, this is what I'm good at, so I know this is my starting point. Maybe it's not something you get out of bed every day wanting to do, but it was a business, an opportunity, and you saw it as a route to success. And
Yeah,
as you matured and as you realized what your true passions were, or you become more convicted, more experienced, you're able to take that already successful thing, or that thing that is attempting to be successful, and pivot, hence rebrand.
there you go.
Awesome to hear it, Jason. Well, thank you so much for being on. We can pull up this concluding slide here. So, some upcoming events. Again, I will be speaking at IT Nation come early November. We are a Pitch It finalist, so very excited about that. But we do a weekly webinar series with CIS, talking about Microsoft Edge browser hardening. So I say next week, tomorrow's guest is Roddy Bergeron from SureWeb. We'll be talking about about 12 settings tomorrow. And then we got Tara Wheeler from Red Queen and Brad Powell from Threat Captain. So very much excited. As a reminder, if you do want to sign up for the freemium of Sention, you can get some free assessments. Just type in settings webinar to let us know where you heard about us. But Jason, incredible guest today. Congratulations on the rebrand to Greenlight Cyber. And I look forward to some future